Welcome to My Morning Cup, a podcast produced by Costa Media Advisors and presented by Rockpoint Bank and EPB. Rockpoint Bank, from Chattanooga for Chattanooga. And EPB, get EPB's fiber optics for the world's fastest community-wide internet. I'm Mike Costa, your host. My guest this week is Matt Patterson. Matt left a career in corporate America to join Bellhops as a partner and on the executive team. Matt, before we trace your career from banking in Birmingham to joining Bellhops as COO and now as founder and investor at Brickyard, let me ask, what's in your morning cup?
Oh man, I just grab my phone, probably just like anyone else, unfortunately. But no, I love starting the day with a workout. I got to get that done. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
What time you get up?
Probably 7:30.
Oh, and what do you do to work out?
I alternate days. I'll run every other day, and then I'll lift weights every other day.
And what's your poison in your morning cup? What do you prefer in the morning to drink?
Well, coffee with a little cream.
A little cream, just black coffee, a little caffeine to get the day going.
That's all I need.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm a decaf guy, believe it
Are
or
you?
not. Well, I'm old enough that I had to go to decaf because, you get past a certain age and the doctor goes, you really ought to think about decaf.
Yeah. Never understood the point.
Well, it's the aroma and it's the ritual and it's,
The habit of it.
And it's gone from filling a drip coffee pot with loose coffee to an espresso machine. But, you get that bold aroma and it's just something I enjoy. But I only drink 1 or 2 cups and I'm done. And that's my dirty little secret. I'm a decaf guy.
Yeah.
But it works. Well, thank you for being here. I know you don't do many of these things. So I really appreciate you being on My Morning Cup. You personally and you and Cam and really everyone over at Brickyard have a fascinating story. But I want to talk about you and how you got involved in all this, how you ended up in Chattanooga. I know you grew up your first 12 years in Jacksonville. If you can, talk a little bit about that, those first years, a little bit about your parents and siblings, if you have any.
Yeah, absolutely. Born in Jacksonville, moved to Panama City when I was 1, and then we moved back to Jacksonville when I was 6 and lived there till I was 12. But had a great childhood growing up, the type of childhood you could, leave the door and walk out the door and ride your bike and be home by dinner. And, just a kind of wonderful upbringing. But I've got a younger brother, so I'm the oldest of 2, and, great parents as well. I've been very blessed with that.
What did your parents do for a living?
They were, my dad was a commercial banker his entire life. He recently retired a couple years ago, but commercial loan officer. He worked at, I believe his first bank, I'm probably getting this wrong, was like Southeast Bank, but it kept getting bought. It was like South Trust and Wachovia, then Wells Fargo. And so, these rare banking careers where he stayed with the same bank for many years, probably like over 30 years.
That's pretty incredible, particularly when you look at what's going on with like local banks and how local bankers move from bank to bank, mainly because of their relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah. He's a very loyal person. Maybe I have that trait in me from him. And then my mom has worked at Blue Cross for, I believe, 25 years.
Blue Cross of Tennessee or Alabama? Alabama.
Yeah.
And how about your brother? What's he do?
He is one of the best golfers I know.
Really?
Unfortunately, I can't beat him and never will. He's a scratch golfer. He played in college. And that was his thing growing up. Like he honed in on this one thing and got really good at it. So he works at PGA Superstore in Birmingham. He does lessons on the side and stuff. But yeah, he just competed in the Alabama Open last week as an amateur, trying to, one of the qualifying rounds.
Right. I might need to get his contact information. I went on a golf trip with some friends to Tellico Village this weekend and completely lost it. I have no golf game. It's so bad I called a guy for a lesson and he said, you should really just buy a pool table because I can't help you.
Yeah, it's a frustrating sport.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, very, very much so. So you moved when you were 12. So really, your formative years were probably you moved to Birmingham, right?
Yeah, we did. And so my entire family is in Birmingham. We don't have a huge family, but aunts and uncles and cousins and, grandparents, they were all in Birmingham.
Yeah. What did you guys do for fun growing up in Birmingham? Sports, that kind of thing?
Oh, yeah, we played everything.
Yeah.
Definitely my grandfather, uh, taught us the game of golf and along with my dad, and, so we did a lot of that growing up, but, yeah, I mean, I was just into everything.
Yeah. Any part-time jobs, anything like that?
When I was 16, I mean, and was able to drive to work,
That's a freedom.
yeah. I mean, I did some, like, odd jobs growing up, but, that was my first real job was working at my uncle's factory, uncle's warehouse. It was a Birmingham Tobacco Company, so a distributing company. Basically everything you see in a convenience store comes from their warehouse, like all the candy bars, all the cigarettes, and so that was my first job, just boxing up cigarettes that were shipped out to convenience stores.
And that's an industry a lot of people don't realize exists, that there's
The middleman,
distributors like
yeah.
that, everything, as you said, from the magazine to the cigarettes to the candy. Are those called jobbers?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Did you ever do the deliveries or anything like that?
Not deliveries, just boxing them up and putting them on the trucks to be shipped out.
Probably in a non-air conditioned warehouse as a 16-year-old.
Yeah, it was an interesting job with some interesting people, that's for sure.
Yeah. Any lessons you took away from that?
I think just, put your head down and do the work, and I think it was not the most difficult thing to outwork everyone in the room, but that was one of the things I was trying to do.
Well, and you had a little more pressure on you too because you were the nephew of the guy signing the checks.
Yeah, you got to earn some respect. You don't want to be the guy that got given the job, and
right.
Yeah, you got to earn your place.
Yeah. At that point in your life, you're 16. What is it you saw that you were going to do as you became an adult? Did you have something that you said, "Man, I really want to do this"?
I really was lost. I really didn't know. I mean, I kind of always thought I might go into banking because of my dad, and I saw him growing up, saw what he was doing when I was growing up, but then I also saw what my uncle was doing as well, and I think that was always in the back of my head that, he was running a company, he was an entrepreneur, and it was a family-owned business, and that was a possibility as well. But coming out of college, I did go straight into banking and gave that a shot.
And where'd you go to college?
Alabama.
University of Alabama. What'd you study there?
Well, started accounting, failed out of that twice. I went into finance, which isn't too dissimilar, but yeah, finance.
Why'd you choose accounting?
I was told it was a safe career.
Yeah.
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 And, I didn't, you had already asked this, like, what did you want to do growing up? I really didn't have like a huge plan, even in college.
Mhm.
I was just still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So you get in, you do some accounting, you end up in finance. Was there at any point during college you say, okay, I kind of have an idea of what I want to do now?
I think maybe my junior, senior year, I was like, I'll go into banking in Birmingham. And that was like one of the big industries in Birmingham. It's healthcare and banking. And that's about it. I mean, insurance or working at a family business. I mean, that's what everyone pretty much does.
In talking to you and Cam, and I've talked to Ted and Kelly, there's got to be something in the water in Birmingham and in Alabama that gets all you guys to Chattanooga to be successful entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Yeah, perhaps. Like I said, all the industries I felt like were very, established. Everyone kind of went into these traditional fields. We didn't see too many people, trying to start companies from the ground up. I mean, there were a lot of like family-owned businesses that have been around forever, but at least at the time, I think Birmingham's like changed quite a bit since I lived there, and they've done a lot better, like in their startup scene. But at least at the time, it didn't feel like, there were a lot of people like trying new things and taking big risks.
I think I saw in some of my notes that you went to, was it Vestavia Hills?
That's right.
Is that where Ted went also?
Yeah, that's right.
Did
He's like
y'all know
8
each
years
other?
older than me. I had never met him,
Uh-huh.
but I was really good friends with his youngest brother, Rocky, and I probably played tackle football in his backyard, 200 times, but I'd never met Ted because he was off to college at that point when we were growing up there.
Right. What an interesting way to close the circle, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we met him. It was really just a total coincidence. We had heard about kind of what he was doing up here and the success that they had had. And someone mentioned, well, you should just go up and talk to Ted and see what they're up to there.
That's always a good idea. And what I mean by that is so many people who might be listening to this think that, "Oh, they'd never take my call, they'd never want to see me, that I wouldn't be able to get an appointment." Well, you don't know till you ask.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, luckily, he's one of the most welcoming people that Chattanooga has. So,
absolutely, huge ambassador for Chattanooga now too.
Absolutely.
So you're at Alabama, you get into finance, you get out. What's your first job?
I take a job. I think I graduated Saturday and I started working Monday. I took a job at BBVA Compass. It was telephone banking, and it was an auto dialer, and it was basically calling, every business within like a 3-mile radius of a bank branch, trying to see if the branch manager could come by and visit with that business, just setting meetings. And it was just as soon as the call ended, it was dialing the next person, and the name would pop up, they would answer, and it'd be like, is Mike there? And so I think I had like 300 phone calls a day, is what it was.
What did that teach you or do for you? Because that's a hard thing. It's hard to make 10 cold calls a day, much less have an automatic dialer that's just putting someone there in your ear every second.
Yeah, I think it taught, the goal of the day was to get 5 meetings. It wasn't a super ambitious goal, but if you're doing 300 phone calls, so if you can get 10 meetings, you're doubling the goal of the day. But I think it taught rejection, obviously, like you're getting told no 295 times, getting hung up on, getting yelled at. So
any interesting call stories you got from that?
Well, my strategy was to move on quick. It was a volume game for me. The more calls I could take, the more of the right people I could get a hold of. There were other people that I worked with that would just argue with the person. It's like, you're not going to get anywhere,
Right.
Just move on and go to the next person, So, I got stuck. I remember getting stuck on like a 45-minute call one time, and the person was just talking politics, and I just couldn't get off the phone. And, so there's some cases like that.
Did they make an appointment though?
Well, sometimes they made false appointments, I'd love to. So, if a guy's talking to me over the phone for 45 minutes, that's probably not somebody I want to send my branch manager to.
Because your branch manager's going to be there.
He's going to get stuck there and not do any business and be mad at me. So,
were you incentivized on appointments in that the more appointments you got, you might get a bonus or a bump or something like that?
That's all it was. Yeah. It was just is how many appointments you could set. And then, it was like who got the most that week would get a bonus.
How long did you do that?
I did it for a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I was starting my career, I told myself, I'm not going to do any one job more than a year. I'm either going to get promoted or I'm going to, look for something else.
That's an interesting way to come out, because when I came out of school, it was find a good company, stay there forever, be loyal. And it seems like the younger generations more along your lines of, I'm going to try this, do it a year, get out, try something else, where we were taught that, boy, you don't want to bounce around, but that's really changed quite a bit. Can you talk a little bit about why that might be?
Well, I was fine with staying loyal. I just didn't want to stay in this bottom rung position for longer than I needed to. And, I looked around the room and there were people that had been there for years in this.
Doing the same thing?
Doing that. And, this is not a job I aspired to do. It was just a job I took out of college. And so, at that bank, I took 2 different positions before I eventually moved on. But unfortunately, I think the incentives are that you have to move to a different company to better yourself a lot of times. It doesn't really serve yourself to stay in a company for very long. Like you kind of get stuck in one place. So maybe I think it's partly on the generation, but I think it's partly on the companies to do something about, bettering their talent and retaining them.
Well, and not to give too many personal examples, but I got to Chattanooga because I was in a sales manager's position in Memphis, and went for a promotion, didn't get it. And I figured out that one of the reasons I didn't get it was the general manager was originally my sales manager when I was an account executive, and still had this image in his mind of me being that young account executive. And if I was going to grow, I had to leave.
Exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's just how it is.
Yeah, and so you take a chance and you go somewhere else. You mentioned you got 2 promotions from the bank before you left. What'd they have you doing?
The second role was just like one of those guys in a bank branch that is like the catch-all. It's like it could do a home equity line of credit, or you're dealing with like NSF fees.
Yeah.
So I could think they call it a financial sales representative. So you were sort of sales and customer service.
So you're like a utility player.
Yeah, you're just
someone walks in the bank and says, I got to talk to someone about these NSF charges.
Oh yeah. I mean, if someone walks in, you're like, I don't know what I'm about to have to deal with right here. I'm either going to get yelled at because this person overdrew their account, or I'm going to hopefully like fill out a loan application and better my sales goals.
Yeah. How long did you do that?
That was a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was next for you?
And then I was a commercial loan officer. So then I was doing what my dad was doing.
Mm-hmm. And was that another year that you were doing that?
Exactly. I did exactly a year there.
So with the bank you got out of school with, you were actually with 3 years.
That's right.
You just wanted to make sure you were getting promoted each year along the way.
Exactly. Trying new things, getting different skill sets.
How important is that for someone coming out of school to have a plan like that? And that may not have been your plan, but in your mind, you said, this is how I want to go about it.
I've just seen so many people get stuck in their careers. And that was just something I was just adamant about not doing. I just didn't want to, especially with like this role that I started my career in, it wasn't anything to brag about. And so I was just like, no more than a year for this.
Do you think some people well, let me rephrase that. Why do you think some people get stuck? Do they get stuck out of fear of change? They get stuck with golden handcuffs? Because some people will go to a job they absolutely hate every day for the rest of their life.
Yeah. Well, the golden handcuffs, that's a different problem. Yeah. Like for maybe later in your career, you want to take a big risk, but, now you've got a family to feed and a mortgage. And, that's a whole different problem. I've seen a lot of people claim they want to try something, but it's really just impossible for them to pull it off without taking a major risk.
How about someone who's building their career? Why do you think they just refuse to move on, even though they're not thrilled with what they're doing?
I don't know. Maybe it is fear of change. Maybe it is just not knowing if you could do the next thing. I'm not really sure.
So you did your third year and you decide it's time to move on. Where do you go?
Well, I had met Cam, and Cam had started working for this hospice medical equipment company.
And let me back up real quick. How'd you meet Cam?
I grew up with Stephen Vlahos. We went to Vestavia as well. And, he's co-founder of Bellhops,
right.
CEO. And so really good friends with him growing up. He goes to Auburn and meets Cam, and they were fraternity brothers. And so I met Cam probably in college through Stephen. But then after college, both me and Cam coincidentally worked at the bank together in the same position. So when we saw each other, that was our bond. Like we commiserated about how miserable we were at our jobs. And so he goes and works for this hospice medical equipment company doing sales. He's selling the service of providing the medical equipment in home to these hospice patients that are coming home to be with their families and passing away. And I think he, like I said, we commiserated over our job. So he knew I was open to leaving. And so he kind of told his boss to, take a look at me for an operations manager role.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really me, and, eventually took that position, but it was really me and him that kind of ran the state of Alabama. It was a company that was headquartered in Texas, but me and him were like the boots on the ground running the Alabama operation.
So Cam was on the sales side. You were more on the operations side?
Yeah. So that was our first taste of getting this two-man team together.
Yeah, first chance to really work together, get to know each other,
exactly,
figure each other out. And you had a relationship already with Stephen is it Vlahos? Vlahos. And he was one of he and Cam came up with the idea for Bellhops at Auburn and began it there.
Well, actually, it came later.
Okay.
It came while Cam was at this medical equipment company.
Yeah, Cam told us that. I should have remembered that.
So it was really like when they were, maybe 25 years old.
Yeah.
And I got to kind of see them start the company, from the sidelines. I was working with Cam, very tightly at the medical equipment company, but I knew that he was starting this thing on the side.
So as a kind of third-party observer, you're watching this go on. What are your thoughts?
I was jealous. I wanted to, the bug was hitting me. I wanted to do something too. I didn't know I didn't have a crystal ball. I didn't know that I'd be joining the company very soon, but I was starting to like ideate myself and, think about things that I wanted to maybe try.
Were there anything in particular, like business-wise, you wanted to try? Did you have a concept or an idea, or was it more just the thought of, "That's where the direction I want to take my career"?
Well, nothing that I was burning hot on, but I mean, there was probably a ton of ideas I was trying to land on, but I just think it was just the idea of it.
Yeah. So you meet Cam at the medical supply company, and they're creating Bellhops. You're watching from the sidelines. How does it come about that you join them?
Well, I mentioned, eventually Steven came up and met with Ted. Someone was like, "You need to go talk to Ted." And Steven was full-time with the company. Me and Cam were still working full-time at the medical equipment company. And I think Steven just came up to just get Ted's advice. Wasn't looking for funding or anything. Just seeing like what he thought about, how do we take this to the next level? And I think two things came from that meeting. They said, well, move to Chattanooga and we'll fund the business. But you need to go find, I think they had met Cam and Steven, and they knew they needed like an operational role in the business. And so they said, go find a third partner that can sort of be like the COO type and help run the company.
So they come to you.
That's right.
Did you jump at it?
I jumped at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I committed on the spot. I mean, I was all in. And I knew that part of the deal was we had to move to Chattanooga very soon.
Yeah.
And I knew that was going to be challenging to talk to my wife about. But I was very excited about it. And, it was a journey I wanted to be a part of.
What year was this?
This was 2012.
2012. So, and as someone who was living here at that time, Access America had made a big splash in the Lamppost Group.
Mm-hmm.
So you're hearing as someone in Chattanooga, being me, I'm hearing as someone in Chattanooga, kind of what's going on. But not really that Access America had formed Lamppost Group and they're going to invest, but didn't really have an idea until you start to see companies like Bellhops coming here.
Right.
What other companies were kind of in that cohort, or were there other companies in that cohort?
Yeah, there were two, I believe, two main ones. One was Fancy Rhino, started by Isaiah Smallman and Drew Bells, and then the other was it's called Ambition now. It was a holding company called Akimbo, and they had a couple products. One was called Fireplug, and I think they had something else too. Oh yeah, Reticker was actually the very first one, and then it turned into Fireplug, and but now it's Ambition, which is software for sales teams.
And what was the magic sauce in that? And what I mean by that, I understand Brickyard, but were you all kind of in the same room, same pit, learning from each other and kind of pushing each other?
Oh yeah, we didn't know what we were doing at all, so we needed to be surrounded by other founders. But I think there were two things that we really took from the experience that we carry on to Brickyard, which is, and I tell every founder this when I get on a call with a founder and I'm talking about Brickyard, but what we learned was something magical happens when you move to a place, you don't know anyone, your friends and family aren't there, you're out of your comfort zone. And that really narrowed down what was important, which was to focus on the company and get it off the ground. So we had no distractions and no noise. And we had 18-hour days in front of us. Yeah. And in fact, our all three of us moved up here, and our wives actually stayed in Birmingham. And that was a challenge, of course, but it was also an opportunity that we seized. Yeah. And, we worked till midnight every night and, got up the next day and rinse and repeat. And we just worked like dogs.
Did you live together too?
Me and Steven lived together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Cameron had his own place.
Yeah. So that was a lot of togetherness.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah. I mean, we were all in trying to make it work.
But to your point of moving somewhere where you don't know everyone, and again, just personal experience, I moved to Chattanooga not knowing anyone. And my wife stayed behind for almost a year with our kids. And it does give you that freedom that this is all I got to do.
Totally.
I can focus on this, and it beats going home and sitting and watching Jeopardy by myself.
Yeah. We moved lightning speed. I mean, so much faster than we would have had we stayed there.
So when you left Birmingham, what level was Bellhops at? And you get to Chattanooga, if you can talk about the growth and how that came about.
Yeah. It was, you know, like I said, I was saying earlier, Steven was the only one that was full time on it. So, I mean, they had done a great job of like planting the seed of this thing, but it really needed like everyone's full time attention. So I think moving to Chattanooga allowed us to do and quitting our jobs is like, okay, now we're truly all in. We have all the time in the world to focus on this business. And so they had, I believe they had planted the flag in 8 SEC schools. It was a college moving company at the time. I mean, fast forward to today, it's like a traditional moving company that competes with any other moving company. Um, but so they were in 8 SEC schools, and the revenue was pretty small. So that very first year, it was still just us three. We didn't hire anyone. We took all the customer phone calls. We recruited all the college students, and we also had no tech. And so everything was super manual.
So you didn't have an app at the time?
We didn't. We had a website that maybe took some information, but nothing happened on the back end. We would have to, personally call all the bellhops and try to like recruit 2 guys for this Saturday morning move in Ole Miss. And when it was done, we would, call them and check up on them, and then we'd have to like manually pay them through PayPal. I mean, it was a total nightmare. And we probably coordinated like 5,000 moves that this is summer of 2013.
Yeah.
But we 10x the business that year. We got to maybe $500,000 in revenue in our first year. But what that allowed us to do was, we had something. We had like a real business at that point, and that allowed us to recruit a CTO, Adam Haney, that we brought on as like a fourth partner. That's when like we really propelled the business. And we brought on 3 more engineers. And then by summer of 2014, we were like really hitting our stride.
At what point did the technology take over? Where you're not doing all the manual stuff. You've got the app, and you've got a workforce that's just checking the app like Uber, and I want this job or that job.
Yeah. So we have, moving is seasonal. So obviously the summer's the busiest. So that summer 2013 was like the nightmare summer. Like we were just dealing with all this manual stuff. In the fall, winter of 13, 14, that's when we like really had many months of engineering work going on. And by summer 2014 is when we had it nailed down.
So when you're going through a transition like that, that's, I would imagine, where it's important to have funders.
Yeah.
To provide that capital to grow it like that.
Oh yeah, we would have never been able to do that without taking, investment.
At what point did you guys look at each other and say, "We got something. I feel good about this. This is what I thought it would be"?
Well, I think we always thought that.
Interesting.
Even from the earliest days when we were doing all this manual work, I think the thing that kept us going was the reviews we were getting. And what differentiated us at the time was we were only hiring college students. And that's the thing about moving is like you're getting this workforce. It's an intimate setting. You're getting people in your home. You're getting people in your bedroom.
Yeah.
And these are, a lot of the times, it's like a transitional workforce. Like no one wants to be a mover. You're getting someone who's like maybe just taking the job because it's like all they could find at the time. We wanted a high quality workforce. And so we focused on college students. But all these reviews kept coming in of like, oh, Timmy and Johnny were so great. And, we actually had them over for dinner that night, stuff like that. So I think that's when the light bulb moment happened very early is like, okay, we're doing something that people want.
At what point did your spouses follow you up here?
It was a while. It was like 2 years.
That's hard to live like that.
Yeah. I mean, all 3 of our wives had their own things going on. I remember Steven's wife had just started grad school, a 2-year program, and Cam's wife, Hannon, had like literally just started her own interior design company like 2 weeks before that. And then my wife had a great job at Blue Cross of Alabama, and she was open to moving, but like needed to find something equivalent or better. So it just took some time.
You're up here. You're with Lamppost Group in their setting. You're starting to have success, but you still got to raise money, don't you? Additional money.
We did, yeah. I mean, venture capital is all about hitting the next milestone. So pre-seed wasn't a thing back then. I mean, Brickyard invests in pre-seed and seed. Can you explain that a bit for folks who aren't familiar with the terms pre-seed and seed? Sure. Yeah. Pre-seed is, it could be as early as a couple founders with an idea. Maybe they have like literally nothing going for them other than the idea. That's as early as it possibly gets. We like to see, especially now with how easy it is to start a company and how technically efficient we want the founders to be, and all the coding assistants that exist now. It should be pretty easy to start a company and get a product off the ground and get some early users. So we like to see at least there's a product that exists, at least there's some users and maybe some revenue. But that's where the pre-seed is. And now seed is like you need to have maybe like a minimum of like 500K in annual revenue, but maybe even more, maybe even like $1 million or $1.5 million.
So in going after investment, did that take you back to those phone calls that you were making when you first started your career? Was that a benefit to you?
I think so. I mean, Steven and Cam led more of the fundraising, and I was more just hands-on on the company. But that's a volume game too. I mean, the cliche thing is like you got to go talk to 100 investors to get like 2 or 3 that want to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. You find that true?
I do find that true. Yeah. And I'm always having to set that expectation with our founders. Like they'll have like a couple meetings and maybe they didn't go well. It's like, well, yeah, but you have 98 more meetings to go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the things I was taught in sales is when you get rejected, that just means you're that much closer to a yes.
Of course.
Get to know and
get it, move on.
So just take us through the rest of Bellhops growth and where it takes you when you guys decide to sell and then where it takes you.
Yeah. Well, 2014, we had a really wonderful year. We grew a ton and our technology stack was humming. And so we raised our Series A at that time. I mean, just to fast forward, I mean, we did, I think only a year later, we did our Series B. And then maybe a couple of years later, there was a Series C. But I left the company in 2016, the end of 2016, actually.
When you say you left the company, you sold out or
no, I just
went to do something different, or
I sold out of it in 2019.
Okay.
But I left to do something different in 2016.
Okay. And what was that?
I started a company called The House, which was like a What's Going On Tonight app for bars and restaurants. And it's kind of like Yelp or OpenTable as far as using something.
I remember The House.
Yeah. Had nothing to do with reviews or reservations, but it was what's happening today at each place, whether it was like happy hours or live music or trivia night or, just what's going on today at each place in town.
And how long did you do that?
I did that till 2020, and that was a challenging year for restaurants. And
say the least.
Luckily, I didn't raise venture capital for that company, and I had the optionality to do whatever I wanted with it. And I sold it at the end of 2020.
So all this is happening in Chattanooga, and you've been part of that culture. How has Chattanooga become a startup city?
I think when we moved here, we felt very welcomed. We felt very embraced by Chattanooga. It felt like an entrepreneurial city.
Mm-hmm.
There's of course like all the old stories of Coca-Cola and how this is like built upon entrepreneurs, and we just felt very like welcomed and respected doing what we were doing here. And I think that always stayed with us. It wasn't necessarily our plan to stay in Chattanooga when we moved here.
Yeah.
But I think we fell in love with it along the way and wanted to keep going.
Well, isn't that kind of the theory with Brickyard now, that a lot of the companies won't necessarily stay here, but for the 1 or 2 that do, it's bringing job growth, it's bringing recognition, it's bringing everything.
Yeah, we think the best founders in the world do not want to move to a place because the city wants economic development. So Brickyard it can't be about that. It can't be about recruiting companies to put their headquarters here. It has to be about something else. And so we wanted to build the best black site in the world that founders can move to, put their heads down, execute their company, and just be immersed with other founders day in, day out. And then, once it's time for them to start scaling the company, we want them to do whatever is best for them. If they need to go to San Francisco or New York, that's great for us. That being said, like we know some of these companies are going to end up staying, and maybe it's the best fit for them. Like Repower, for example, is a company, it's in the trucking industry, and so this was a wonderful city for them to plant their flag and be here. Like it wouldn't make sense for them to be in New York or San Francisco. So some of these companies will end up staying if it's the best fit for them.
And when you say black site, you're talking about basically a nondescript building with a lot of different companies in it. No one really knows what's going on in there.
Exactly.
Would that be fair enough?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, this is a place where we want to like remove all the noise and distraction for these founders. And it's in the middle of nowhere as it relates to tech or they're coming from San Francisco or New York or just like random places in between. And they had never thought about Chattanooga. So, this is just like it's a weird place for them to come to. But yeah, that's the point of it. It's like, lock into this facility and just focus on your company and only talk to other founders while you're here.
Kind of like a safe house.
Yeah, exactly.
If we were in the intelligence business.
That's right.
So you're doing the house.
Right.
At what point does the Brickyard conversation come up?
About 2020. I mean, I was selling the company and Cam was stepping out of Bellhops as well. And we were talking to Ted, Allen, and Barry and I think we were all looking back at those like 2014 days and they were the most fun time of our lives, like really, building our company and humming and, all being together in that one space. And Lamppost was this beautiful thing that really only lasted a few years. Yeah. It was kind of, if you look at it as a fund, it was a wonderful fund. I mean, there were like 7 companies that hit big in that quote unquote fund. They weren't really treating it like a fund. It was more of like their own family office, but they didn't have a really sustainable model to keep it going. And especially after they sold Access America, so it kind of ended in maybe like 2016 or so. So we went, Chattanooga went 4 or 5 years without a lot of institutional capital, like investing in founders. So we wanted to get the band back together and
great way to put it.
And do a 2.0 version of it.
Yeah. And you mentioned something, Chattanooga didn't have a lot of institutional investors. And I remember when I moved here, Bob Corker was just running for mayor. And that was one of the things that he noted in Chattanooga because he had been in Nashville as state finance director. And I remember him making a point of the lack of angel investors or investors in Chattanooga to where businesses couldn't launch. Why is it so important?
Well, I mean, if we want founders to operate a company here, I mean, there's really a few things you need in an ecosystem. It's founders, it's investors, and it's talent. And if you don't have those things, then you're just going to move to a place where those things exist. We probably have founders. We definitely have strong founders here, but yeah, they're not going to stay here unless, there's talent that they can hire and there's investment that they can raise from.
Mm-hmm. And how important is it for the general population to understand that? Because I'm just thinking in general, most people don't necessarily know everything what's going on business-wise, but when you hear of companies moving in and getting their start, why we should be supportive of them?
Oh, well, they're trying to do one of the hardest things in the world, so we should rally behind them and be there for them. But, what they can do is just exponential, look at like Bellhops, for example. We raised $1 million from Lamppost when we started the company, but we ended up raising over $100 million in venture capital from other places that got deployed here. And so the economic development of that is quite exponential, right?
Yeah.
So if we just have the seed capital that can get companies started, I mean, they can pull in capital from, large capital from other places, but actually deploy it here.
So you and Cam, Ted, Barry, and Allen get together and decide to launch Brickyard.
Right.
Does the name at all come from the origination of the brick company that Access America started with?
Yes. How did you know that? Did we tell you that?
No, I just figured the history of it. I knew a little bit of the large family's history with the brick business and how Access America started in the back room, basically.
Totally. Yeah. It's a throwback to, Access America was incubated out of Key James Brick, Barry's dad's brick company. Bellhops is incubated out of Lamppost, and and now Brickyard's incubating these companies. And yeah, so it's just a throwback to how, or I guess Brickyard was like really the first incubator.
So in forming this, what was the not the vision to bring in companies, but the physical vision for that site there? When you're saying we kind of want to recreate what we had at the Lamppost Group, what were those conversations of what you wanted to do, and then the reality of what you have today?
Well, we toured, I don't know, 50 places, and I think we just walked into that building and we knew this is it. And it was just a wide open floor plan. It was a building that had great bones. We had to do some stuff, but it was almost move-in ready. And you know, it was the perfect size. I mean, we just knew immediately walking into it.
So when you talk to founders who come looking for investment, being part of Brickyard, what is the pitch? What is it you're telling them other than we're going to invest in you, but you got to move to Chattanooga?
Right. Yeah. I try to scare them. I try to talk them out of doing
the no blue sky.
Yeah. There are a lot of fakes in this business. It became like pop culture to, want to start a company, and it didn't used to be that way. I think 15 years ago, it just wasn't like a cool, sexy thing to do. It was like almost like, why are you doing that? Why aren't you taking the safe route and working at an investment bank or something? But now it's almost like going to Y Combinator is better than getting like a Harvard MBA. And so one thing I love about what we're doing is it kind of does weed out the fakes. I mean, there are a lot of people that try to found a company and they're like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They're like, they have this like, we'll see attitude.
Right.
They're calling it a project and not a company. And
yeah.
And there's a ton of these like accelerators that might have 10 companies in an accelerator, and then 12 months later, like 8 of those aren't even around anymore. So one thing that I love about Brickyard is that it is this filter. Like you have to, no one's going to move across the country and commit to doing this thing for 1 to 2 years if you weren't truly all in on it. So it does kind of weed out a lot of those people. But in the first 5 minutes of a conversation, I don't want to hear about their company. I just want to tell them exactly what this looks like, how it works, why we're doing it. I explain to them, kind of the 2 value adds of this place is like you move to a place you don't know anyone, you've removed all this noise and distraction, you've got only one thing to work on, it's the company. And then the second thing is, while you're here, you're surrounded by 50 other founders who also moved here from all over the world to do the exact same thing at the exact same stage. And you're only communicating with other founders day in, day out for a long period of time, not just like an 8-week cohorted program where we're racing you to a demo day, like an accelerator would do. And so if they lean in and if they're into that model, then we want to dig into the company. And it's very quickly we can tell maybe this isn't the best fit for them. And, they're kind of backing away from the chair and they're like, I don't know, and so we just cut the call off and politely say, that's okay. I don't want to waste your time. And, but yeah, we quickly want them to opt in or opt out.
I would imagine you probably talked to hundreds of companies over the years at this point. What separates, and I think you answered it to a great degree, the being all in, the burn the boats mentality.
Sure.
But can you tell if someone is chasing an idea more or money more? And what's the red flag there?
We just want to find founders that are maniacally obsessed with the problem that they're trying to solve.
Let me interrupt you. Saying the problem they're trying to solve, is that the common line with most successful entrepreneurs? They identify a problem and they're going to solve it.
Yes. I think some founders can get caught up with the new technology and want to build a company with like maybe new things that exist today. But at the end of the day, like if you're not solving a problem for the users that you're trying to build for, there is no company. So that's the first and foremost thing. That's what finding product market fit is. You have to solve a problem for a customer to the point that they are willing to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. And in talking to those, I would imagine you're being pitched by them to be part of this. Are you tired of PowerPoints?
Oh yeah, I fly through a lot of these.
Yeah. What's the mistake someone makes when they're presenting something like that to you or the group? What are the common mistakes you see, whether it's a rote PowerPoint or just things they say?
A pitch deck should just be used to land a meeting. It's not to land an investment, so you don't have to have the whole entire business plan in a pitch deck. You don't need to overbuild it. It should be like 12 slides or less. And really what I'm looking for at this early stage is the team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the biggest mistake I see is like you don't even have a team slide. Like, who is building this company? Like, if you can't even tell me that, then we're not going to take a meeting. And then I'd say team and then traction. Like, what have you done to date? Do you have users? Do you have a product? Do you have some revenue? If not, that might be okay, but just tell me the traction. And then we see so many things. Like I've seen probably AI for recruiting no less than like 200 times. You start seeing the same type of company being built over and over. So anytime you see something novel and new that's like really interesting, that's of course something we want to see as well.
Yeah. I would bet AI is in almost every pitch you see today that how
sure.
their AI product's going to solve.
You have to be. Yeah, every company is AI native to a degree.
Yeah. And when you mentioned seeing something novel, that stands out, can you give an example of a company like that or a product like that?
Sure. Like a company called Coonan that's headquartered here in Chattanooga. That we invested in. They're taking they're working with mining companies and taking raw waste from these mining companies, and they're pulling pure raw periodic elements out of the waste streams that are valuable, like gallium and vanadium. And that's something you don't see. I don't see a lot of the pitch decks for that.
I don't even know who thinks of that, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're like, what? So yeah, we want to see hard things. We want to see, founders going for big, ambitious ideas.
One of the things you said that I think a lot of people don't think about, but to me makes the most sense, is you want to see the team. It sounds like you really focus in on who's doing this, what's their drive, and are they going to keep doing it?
100%. I mean, that's, it's a cliche thing, but that's 90% of what pre-seed investing is. You're just investing in the team. I mean, you want to see a new and novel idea, but a lot of times that idea changes. That's what the trough of sorrow is, as we call it. Like you're in this 2 to 3 year grind of finding product market fit. And a lot of times you're climbing a summit and you realize you get to the top and you realize you're on the wrong mountain. You've climbed the wrong summit and you've got to go back down and start over and chase something different and, pivoting, as they call it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times the idea changes. And so you just really need to find the team that can not only find product market fit and go through that 2 to 3 year grind to find it, but also, people that can evolve over time and build a lasting company.
One of the things we talk about on this podcast is that you've got to pivot. Things change. It's not always going to be what you thought it would be. And you take the fork left and that brings you one direction and the other. Is there a problem that's probably the wrong way to put it. Are there entrepreneurs that are so committed to their one thing that they fail because they don't pivot?
Oh, sure. That's like, yeah. I mean, that's the number one reason I think that founders fail is that, they don't adjust. And maybe deep down in their gut, they know something's wrong. They know they're chasing the wrong thing, but they've bet everything on that, and they just don't have the ability to turn around and go the other way. And yeah, it's the founders that fail fast and move on. Those are the ones that make it through.
Fail fast and move on.
Yeah.
Just accept it and go try the next thing.
Yeah. A startup, all it is just, it's just a hypothesis that you're trying to test. And that's what finding product market fit is testing these hypotheses until something like really sticks and takes off.
What and I'm going to use the word cohort again. What cohort are you on at Brickyard at this point? Is this the second or third group?
Well, we don't do cohorts. We invest deal by deal.
Okay.
An accelerator might invest in, here's 20 companies in our batch and they all start on this date and they end
Right.
on this date. And we just invest like any other pre-seed or seed firm, VC firm. We just find the deals we want to do and we'll do them. So we'll invest in maybe 10 to 12 companies a year. And as we do those deals, they have maybe 60 days to move to Brickyard and they assimilate in. But on the backside of that, somebody's, graduating and moving out.
Yeah,
So we have about 20 companies that operate there today.
Slotting them in as time goes by.
Exactly.
And how long are they committed to being here?
So we started with a length when we first started Brickyard. We're like, let's come here for 1 year. We really didn't like that at all. Like some companies would come, their 12-month would be done, but they didn't really accomplish what they set out to accomplish. So now we have them come up with a mission at hand, a milestone to hit. And usually it's like whatever metrics you need to go raise that next round of funding. But if you're like a pre-revenue company, maybe it's $1 million a year in ARR, or maybe it's $2 million a year in ARR. If you're $1 million a year in ARR, maybe it's $4 million a year in ARR. So we want them to come with a mission at hand before they leave. And so I'd say most companies are here for like 1 to 2 years. 18 months on average, but they don't come necessarily with a timeline in mind.
Do you find a number of them staying and making Chattanooga home?
Yeah, there's maybe like eight or nine or so that are that I'd say are headquartered here.
Yeah, and back to kind of you mentioned this is not economic development, but bringing in 8 or 9 companies is good for the city.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a great secondary benefit to what we're doing. I mean, our number one concern is fund return, and we want to build the best place for early stage founders to build their company until they find product market fit. Past that, we want them to go build it wherever they want to build it. But of course, we're always fired up when they choose to stay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I got a couple more questions for you because
Sure.
I know we're running a little bit long. What is it you tell them about Chattanooga outside of this will give you a chance to concentrate, you'll be 18 hours. What is it you tell them that attracts them to come beyond those things? Are there city benefits or quality of life kind of thing?
We just get them on a plane. That's our final step of our process is we'll fly the founders here. We do a quick 24-hour visit. We want them to see Brickyard, meet every founder in the space and kind of hear about it from them. We do a tour of Chattanooga and we go to lunch. But that's always been our strategy. Even at Bellhops, when we were recruiting people to Chattanooga, it's like, we just got to get them here. If we can get them on a plane, get them here, I mean, the close rate is extremely high.
You kind of let it sell itself. You got the other companies
100%.
Who are saying, here's what we do. You take them around town. They see how beautiful the natural outdoors are.
Yeah. I think if we were like, there's no state income tax and it's a beautiful city. And if we were like touting all these things that, I think they would know that we're doing it for the wrong reasons. And so we choose to keep the pitch really centered around Brickyard and Chattanooga just happens to be where we are. But yeah.
Sounds like you guys have captured that organic vibe, to still be able to grow a company organically and not make it all about the numbers. And I know it's about the numbers, but
of course, yeah.
Before I get to the last question, I do want to remind our listeners of the tremendous support we get from our presenting sponsors. EPB, get EPB fiber optics for the world's fastest community-wide internet, and Rockpoint Bank, your local banking partner, your business, your bank, your future. And I do want to remind our listeners, if you like My Morning Cup, hit the subscribe button and have the latest episode downloaded every Monday morning. Never miss an episode again. All right, Matt, last question for you. What would you tell that 25-year-old Matt Patterson is important for a happy life?
Oh, man. I think it's important to work hard in your 20s. We were talking about like maybe getting stuck later in your career. And you want to take a big risk, and I mean the 20s is your time to do it.
Yeah.
It's really not a big risk when you think about it. Like you're not risking anything. You haven't built a career, you haven't built, a nest egg, and so that is the time to go all in on something. So, I think telling myself, just having the confidence that taking a big risk is actually the safest thing you could do.
How many folks at the beginning of their career, and we'll say in their 20s, get caught up with that green-eyed monster of envy?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're in your 20s and you're looking at people in their 30s and 40s and going, I can't take that risk because I want that, and I want it today. Do you think that's a factor in it?
I think so. I think maybe more so than the green envy is like the social envy. You know, maybe that's the culture that they've been taught to grow up in. Maybe that's what's respected wherever they're from, is to go take this safe route. I think maybe that's more of the risk.
Yeah. Well, this was a great conversation. I appreciate you doing it, Matt. As I said at the beginning, I know you don't do a lot of these. I'm thrilled you said yes, and look forward to getting to know you even better.
Hey, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, enjoy it. Thanks, man. Thanks for listening to My Morning Cup, a podcast by Costa Media Advisors. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. I release a new episode each week, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.